but can you share with listeners what happened on February 16th, 2004?
Yeah, so I would say that, up until that point at 35 years old, there were challenges in life, but nothing broke me, right? Nothing, no occurrence in my life or someone I cared about, uh, nothing happened that dropped me to my knees. And that on February 16, 2004, me and my family were dropped to our knees. And quite frankly, uh, I didn't know where to go from there. So it was, we have 4 children. I was the head wrestling coach at Hofstra. The team was doing well. Um, uh, we had, we had things that we didn't grow up with, right? We had like air conditioning in the house, and we had a pool in the backyard. Things were just going really well. And it was President's Day. My 4 children, 3 boys, and my daughter Mac, all came to work with me that day. We played together all day in the wrestling room. I say there's no safer place in the world for young kids than in a wrestling room, right? Everything's padded, the floors, the walls,
the mats,
right?
yeah.
The mats. I mean, it's just a great place for kids to grow up. So we get home that night. We have a great day. It was President's Day. We get home that night. Dinner's on the table, and we sit down for dinner. We have a great dinner. We're telling stories about the day, and then one of them had to shower first. It was my 5-year-old son Teague. He was voted by the family to shower first, and he was an ornery little guy. He gets up from the table, starts running around the house. My wife starts chasing him. We kind of had an open floor plan. We saw the chase happening. We're screaming and yelling, "Let's go! Let's get him! Get him! Get him!" So my wife kind of hides behind this wall, and then she picks him up. She startles him a little bit and grabs him, and then she's walking with him to the back of the house, and we're at the table, and we're still laughing. But I can tell you that I remember in that moment when she picked him up, something overwhelmed me. There was a sense that something was wrong, but I thought nothing of it, right? Because nothing was wrong, we thought. So she goes to the back of the house, and within seconds, she's screaming that Teague wasn't breathing. So I run to the back of the house and I grab Teague. Listen, this is a 5-year-old healthy kid. He could do many pull-ups. He could run all day. He could wrestle. He was very fit. He was a coach's son, right? He was with me all the time. And thank God I was always with him. I didn't need a lesson in time management with my kids. They mattered to me. So I put him on the coffee table. I can't get a pulse on him. So I start performing CPR. My wife calls 911. And after about 12 minutes, the ambulance arrives at the house. At one point, I thought I heard the ambulance coming. So I picked him up and ran him about 100 yards up the street to get him in the ambulance sooner. But it wasn't an ambulance. It was a police on another call. So I run him back to the house, keep doing CPR. The ambulance finally arrives. They run some tests, code blue. They put him in the ambulance. By then, a neighbor had come over to stay with our children, my 3 other children. My wife and I jump in the car and we follow the ambulance. And, 2 things happened. On that ride from my house to the hospital, I called my brother. I said, Teague fell over. Something's wrong. He's unconscious. He's going to this hospital. Please let the family know. We had 7 children in the family. They were going to meet us there. And then the second thing we did was my wife and I started to pray together. And we hadn't really prayed much as a couple. We were married for almost 11 years at that time, and we were just busy living life. And God wasn't really the center of our life. We were just busy doing things and living. We prayed together. We got to the hospital after an hour and a half. Family had gathered, and the surgeon just comes out and he said, "Mr. and Mrs. Ryan, we're so sorry. We couldn't save him." And at that moment, I mean, yeah. So we were both, life was shattered. We were shattered. It was, not the way life, the life that I thought I was promised was going to go. You work hard, you do things the right way, and you control the things you can control. And I never considered that a child dies before their parents, and certainly wasn't going to be mine. But we're left to pick up the pieces, and I'm one of the leaders of the house, and we get home that night. I would say the toughest moment of my life was pulling in that driveway. I would say by far. So we pull in the driveway, and the kids come running out, and of course, right, Jake's 8, Jordan was 11, Mackie was 3, Teague was 5. And they come running out. And Jake, as I opened the door of the car, he said, "Where is he? Where is T?" And the crazy, wild thing is, as a 35-year-old grown man leading people, I really didn't know. I couldn't answer that question. And that became, right, this next line in the sand for me. The first line in the sand was being the best wrestler I could. Am I going to leave Syracuse and walk on? That was a line in the sand. But it really paled in comparison to this one. And that simply was, where is he, right? And what are the options? Where could he be? And that became really the ultimate quest and journey that's been beautiful for me. It's been a beautiful journey. And it's the two options that every human being is faced with. And I took a piece of paper, and on the left side I wrote God, and on the right side I wrote no God, right? A pure evolution or a God. And which one is true? And my journey became, is God real or not? And I studied and I learned and I listened and I read. And instead of listening to rock and roll on the way to work, I listened to brilliant minds and what they believe and why they believe it. And I read tons of books. And ultimately, as you guys both know, it became unbelievably clear to me that God is real. And I wasn't chasing God. I wasn't pursuing God, right? I was pursuing truth. And I think whatever the truth was, I do believe that my children are all healthy now, married in great marriages. They have a strong faith. And I say, like, I don't know where my children would be if my wife and I didn't really turn to Christ and and really believe. I think I was a strong enough man that I wouldn't have allowed, right, my children to suffer through having a father that couldn't get over a tragedy, or having a mother that couldn't get over a tragedy. Because we know that, right, marriages break up.
Yes.
And often children are almost orphaned because their parents cannot deal with the heartache of the loss. So I think that wouldn't have been me, but I don't know that. All I do know is what happened and how it played out. And that's God.